Calling all spiritual warriors, calling all spiritual warriors. We are in a spiritual war. Hi, I'm Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this is On the Wings of Your Mind. And I'm calling all spiritual warriors because we're in a war. And the question is, how many spiritual warriors will it take to win this war? Well, before we get to that question, let's talk about why I think we're there and what signs I'm seeing. Now, yesterday I talked to you about the media and the fact that television and movies are two visual media of mass communication. Our visual media are the strongest and most powerful tools of hypnotism that exist in the world. You know, it's just within seconds when you're watching, because of the rapid flicker of the TV screen or the computer screen or the movie screen, because they're all flickering. They're all showing frame after frame after frame after frame. It's not continuous, but frame after frame after frame at a very high speed. 30 seconds, 24 frames to 30 frames per second. And so within a few minutes or a few seconds, of watching the movies and the TV, we go into a state of hypnosis where our minds are wide open. So let's talk about it. Today is Wednesday, March 24th, 2021. And as I said, we're in a spiritual war. The question is, how many of us is going to take to turn the tide? You know, told you yesterday that it was not a physical thing. It's a matter of our spiritual selves getting involved in the work. The fact that that our minds are so powerful and our hearts are so filled with spirit that when we join together and activate the power of our hearts and our minds, then we're going to overcome. Because there's a preponderance of stories and reports about in real life where people who flaunt the law, either physically or spiritually, but they flaunt the law, they break the law, but they're being portrayed as winners, while those of us who seek to maintain our value systems are being portrayed as stupid, as jerks, as out of touch with reality. You know what's become the norm? Stewing hatred has become the normalized standard of communications. Physical violence is on the rise, especially against the elderly who cannot defend themselves. And the brawling in shopping malls and restaurants and other gathering places is becoming more and more and more common. Something is trying to tear us apart from the inside of our society. So that looks like a spiritual war to me. You know, I'm reminded of the movie The Kingsman, The Secret Service. There was a character in there named Richmond Valentine who was portrayed by Samuel L. Jackson. He's a billionaire inventor who has created a new SIM card that he's giving away for free. A SIM card that people can install in their smartphones and have free calling. But what's behind that is a nefarious scheme, because he can activate something within those SIM cards that will generate a mind-altering signal that causes people to become murderously violent against each other. And when he turns them on, a brawl breaks out and people start trying to kill each other. And what it turns out is he's using this as a tool to reduce the world population, because he thinks it's overpopulated and they're hurting the environment. So as I turn around around me and I look at what's happening in the media and around me, it seems that our television and movies are being turned against us. They're being turned against us to desensitize us and to more easily accept violence and otherwise negative behavior against others. They're making it okay within our minds for these heinous acts to be perpetrated without us reacting to it. It's like, oh, Someone just blew his head off. Wow. Isn't that something? They're trying to make us like that. They're trying to disengage us from our spiritual beliefs. That's what's happening. That's a spiritual war. Please, click on the thumbs up button. If you haven't already done so, please choose to subscribe. The thumbs up button is below. If you choose to subscribe, it's on that side of the screen down in the corner. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. And so if you do that, thoughts and comments, then, excuse me, you can do that on the right side of the screen. There's a chat box on the right side of the screen. If you're viewing this on Wednesday, March 24th, then the chat box is active. Any other time, it's the replay mode, and you can do it below the screen, underneath where the thumbs up button is. So, spiritual warfare. I'm reminded, I'm putting out a call for as many of us as possible to become spiritual warriors. And as you know, I keep proclaiming that we as spiritual warriors need to combine our spiritual powers to elevate the consciousness of the planet. We need to do that together. We're going to transform the planet. Of course, the idea of changing the world, hey, I'll admit it, it's a crazy idea. A totally crazy idea. But let me tell you this. There is a famous quote attributed to Steve Jobs, the man who had created the iPhone and the iPad and et cetera, et cetera. Steve Jobs of Apple Computer, the chairman of the board, the creator of Apple Computer, a man who has actually changed the world, said, "The people who are crazy enough to believe that they can change the world are the ones that do." Do you believe you can change the world? Let's do it. Let me remind you, as we talk about that, of the story of Gideon and his army. Now, Gideon was a character in the Old Testament of the Bible. He appeared in the book of Judges, chapters 6 and 7. Now, Gideon was a farmer living in a very oppressive world. His people were under the rule of the Midianites, and who would take their food and destroy their crops to keep them weak and vulnerable. The Midianites. Now, in order to feed his family, Gideon found a way to grow his crops and process his crops in hidden places so that his family would not have to starve. And one day he was threshing wheat, which is, he was processing the wheat to remove the wheat grains from the stalks and the pads. And he looked up and he saw an angel sitting under an oak tree. The angel said to him, "You are a brave man, Gideon, and the Lord is with you. Go out boldly and save your people from the power of the Midianites." Gideon said, "What? Hey, I'm just a farmer. I couldn't possibly save the people or raise an army or any of that." But the angel said, "God will be with you and will help you drive out your oppressors." Now, his first assignment was to change the consciousness of the people who were deeply into worshiping idols, the idols of materialism that were keeping them weak and short-sighted. So what he did was he chopped down the wooden idols, and he burned them. And then he dared the idols to punish him for what he had done. Of course, they couldn't. And the people seeing this, who thought that the idols were very powerful, were moved. And they said, "Okay, Gideon, we'll go along with you for a while." So Gideon sent messengers throughout the land, urging his people to join him and prepare to eject their enemy from their lands. Join me, let us form an army, and let's get rid of these Midianites. So thousands of people answered his call. They weren't prepared to fight, but they answered his call. They wanted to see what was going on. So what they did was they arrived. They were not a disciplined army, and they were about to face a very highly disciplined army. And most of them were really terrified about what was going to happen, but they wanted to check out Gideon. So during his time as the general, he was deeply and intensely in prayer. And he asked for signs and guidance from God to show him how to win the war that he was getting ready to fight. So God gave him some signs that convinced him that it was really God. I won't go into that. You can read that in Judges 6 and 7. Let me show you that, by the way. Gideon's army, Judges 6 and 7. Now, one of the messages that Gideon received from God was that his army was too large. He was told that if his army wins the victory as large as they all are, that they're going to think that they won on their own power, not with God's help. So he was instructed to send home all those who were afraid to fight. As it turns out, there were a whole lot who were very frightened by what they were going to face. They probably would have run at the first sign of conflict. So consequently, when Gideon announced, everybody who was afraid of the enemy may go home, they immediately jumped on it. They left and they hid away in their homes, away from the battle. Actually, a total of 22,000 left right away. So that shrunk the army down to about 10,000 people. 10,000 who were brave enough and determined enough to fight this battle. So now, even though it was a considerably smaller army, 22,000 left, I mean, just ran. He now had an army that was definitely ready to fight. But then to his surprise, God told him again, the army is still too large. We don't want that many people going up against the Midianites when I set this up. So get rid of a lot of them. I don't need them. I only need a few of them. So what God instructed him to do, he says, okay, let's march down the mountain as if you're going to battle, and I'm guiding you to march past a body of water, and at least see what happens when they get to the body of water. Well, when they got to the body of water, a lot of them threw down their swords and shields and went to the edge of the water and began cupping their hands and drinking the water, just sucking it up. Some of them, on the other hand, kept their spears and spears, their swords and their shields, and they used only one hand because they didn't want to be unprepared in case the enemy came up and attacked from behind. So they only used one hand to drink water, while the others had thrown down their weaponry and were going full tilt at bringing two hands, cupping their hands, filling it with water, and drinking to their fill. So that was the key. So the ones that used two hands together like a cup, God told Gideon to move them to one side, to make them one company. And he told them that the ones who held on to their weaponry and drank with one hand only, he wanted to put them in another side. And then he said, okay, now send those who drank with two hands, who put down their weapons, send them back to camp, to the rear guard. That is a position where they won't be directly in battle, but in case anything happens that you need them, they are close by. So Gideon did that, and he had 300 left. 300 warriors left to go against this army. Okay? So God says, all right, now this is what I want you to do. I want you to give each one of them a lamp, a pitcher, and a trumpet. A lamp, a pitcher, and a trumpet. Now, the picture he used in an interesting way. Uh, he told them to put the lamps inside to light the lamps. So I guess they were oil lamps. To light the lamps and put them inside of the pitchers, inside of this large vessel, and so they would be hidden. Then he had them surround the camp in the middle of the night, quietly surround the camp of the Midianites. And on cue, on synchronized cue, shouted out, and they all sang out, "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon." And immediately after the shout, they broke their pitchers, and there was a flash of light as all the lamps came on at the same time. And then they blew their trumpets. And so here is this camp surrounded by 300 men with all these lights now shining at the same time, shouting and blowing their trumpets to a sleeping group of soldiers who are now startled awake. It's like, what in the... They wake up and they see all this lights around them, and wherever they look, there's a man with a sword waiting to kill them. They were terrorized. It's like, oh my God. So instead of fighting, all they could think of in the immediate seconds following their rude awakening was to run, was to get the hell out of there. So they did. They ran. They turned and they started running, and they were running, and because it was dark and because they were overwhelmed and in a panic, they trampled some of themselves to death. They trampled some of them. And they started running down through the valley toward the river, towards their home country. Only because the 10,000 troops had been put into a rear guard position, they had set up a trap, and they were waiting for this army to run into them, which is exactly what they did. They ran right into the trap where the 10,000 soldiers were waiting to kill them. It was a bloodbath. Some still got through. They ran to the river and jumped in and tried to swim away, only there were another group of soldiers waiting a little bit down the river who killed them off as well. So the result was Gideon, with his initial troop of 300, totally routed the Midianites and ran them into traps that they were totally destroyed. They were killed. Their leaders were killed. The soldiers were killed. Needless to say, they never returned. They never returned to terrorize Gideon's people. So after that, Gideon was praised and elevated, but he always gave credit to God. He said, it wasn't me, it was the higher power of God. I am not the architect of this. It was all God. Of course, I am not advocating physical blood and guts war. No, that would not serve us. Remember, we're involved in a spiritual war. So our weapons must be the weapons of spirit, our minds and our hearts. I only use Gideon and his army to illustrate that when we call on the power of spirit, it doesn't matter who we're going against, because no force, no scheme or plan or action can defeat us once we lock into spirit. No matter what the numerical odds might be, once we locked into spirit, we are powerful. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. Remember? We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. We are spiritual warriors. And if we stay true to our purpose of connecting with and serving as conduits for the power of infinite intelligence, we will bring love and peace and harmony into this world. As we stay true to our purpose of connecting with infinite intelligence and serving as conduits for the power of infinite intelligence, Our numbers will continue to grow. More and more and more will join us as spiritual warriors, and our movement will grow stronger, the movement of spiritual warriors who will transform the world for the better. With love and peace and harmony, we can do it. Let's close with prayer. Thank you, Infinite Intelligence, for bringing all of us together in this life so that we may become spiritual warriors and join in the work we have come here to do. Thank you, Infinite Intelligence, for bringing us into this space of awareness and a deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationship to life and infinite intelligence. Thank you for showing us who we really are. We open our minds and hearts to the truth of our being. We are the children of God. We are the individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And because we are part of the greater whole, we're beginning to understand our value to the continuity of life on this planet. And as we become channels of your power, infinite intelligence, we can feel your presence within ourselves and within our lives more and more. We know that as we feel your presence within our lives every day, we will rise, because we are no longer cut off from you by being immersed in the darkness of fear, anger, and the pain of unforgiveness. So we are now restoring our connection through the grace of forgiveness, knowing that as we learn to forgive ourselves for the pain we have caused to ourselves, and as we learn to forgive those who have inflicted pain upon us, our lives will grow happier. Our connections will grow stronger, and our lives will grow happier and healthier and more prosperous. And for this, we are truly grateful. As above, so below. As within, so without. And so it is. Amen. Hi, I'm back. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending a little time with me on this afternoon. Remember, if you haven't already done so, I'd love it if you would subscribe. Remember, the thumbs up button is down below. And also, the comment section is below as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, your questions, etc. So hopefully I'll see you again tomorrow. Please remember, I am Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this is On the Wings of Your Mind.